What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for February the 14th of 2020. Of course, happy Valentine's Day. I hope that whatever you're doing, you are enjoying the evening and that you had a phenomenal day. And of course, every day should be a phenomenal day if you can make it one. We're getting way too philosophical this early in the show. However, moving on to today's news, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. A report says that Sony is struggling with PlayStation 5 cost and the price point is uncertain, but Bloomberg says the system currently costs $450 to make. Sony is struggling with costly parts driven by high demand for memory components that could drive the price of the PlayStation 5 to around $500, according to a report from Bloomberg. The current manufacturing cost of the PlayStation 5, Bloomberg says, is around $450. Competition for DRAM and NAND flash memory are said to be driving up cost, but Bloomberg also reports that Sony is using an especially expensive cooling system for PlayStation 5. A common complaint about the company's current generation console, the PlayStation 4, is loud fan noise due to heat dissipation. Bloomberg says Sony is taking a wait-and-see approach, meaning waiting to see how Microsoft prices its Xbox Series X console to setting the PlayStation 5's price. But if Sony follows a similar pricing model for PlayStation 5 as it did with the launch of PlayStation 4, a price of $499 for PS5 seems possible, if not very likely. When Sony unveiled first details on the PlayStation 5 last year, the console sounded more expensive than the $399 PlayStation 4 Pro, but the company said it was targeting an appealing price point based on the PlayStation 5's feature set. We may not know the price of the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X until June at the earliest, but Microsoft will attend E3 2020, where it is expected to reveal more details about its next-gen Xbox, and Sony said it will skip E3 this year in favor of other consumer events. Both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are planned to launch during the holiday quarter of this year and are expected to have similar price points. So, right off the bat, I want to bring up a point that they actually brought up on Sacred Symbols, which is one of the world's biggest PlayStation podcasts, hosted by Chris Raygun and Colin Moriarty. Whenever the PlayStation 4 launched in 2013, it came out with a price point of $399. Now, if you adjust for inflation, that comes out, according to Mr. Moriarty, to $451 in today's day and age. So, technically, if they sold this at the cost of production, then it would not make any money for Sony, but it also wouldn't lose any money either if this report is to be believed. Now, if they want to make a profit for each individual console, they are going to have to at least pump up that figure to $500 per console if you do want to, again, have a profitable piece of hardware. Or alternatively, they can take a hit on the PlayStation 5 and make all of their money back through software, and that could be an alternative option. Now, you can break this down in a couple of different ways. So if the console is in fact cheaper at launch, let's say they do nail, by some stretch of the imagination, a $400 price point, many more people are going to get on board early on, which means more pieces of software are going to get sold, which could make up for the lack of hardware being sold. Now, alternatively, if the console is very expensive, then less people are going to be buying it on day one. Some are going to be waiting on sales or a price drop. And so therefore, not only will the hardware suffer, but the software sales will suffer as well, especially if a lot of the big first third-party games are going to be backwards compatible or alternatively are going to be released on both generations of the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. Now, I think it's very strange that they're waiting on the Xbox Series X price point to be revealed to call out what they are going to be pricing their piece of hardware at. So it sounds like what Sony has going on behind closed doors right now is an internal deliberation saying that if they can, they're going to price it at $450 to be competitive with the Xbox Series X. But if Microsoft does pinpoint their price of their console at $500 or more, then it could look like a $500 release price point across the board for the next generation, which is a very pretty penny for a lot of people, especially those that might be in high school, working McDonald's jobs, Wendy's jobs, that might be depending on their parents' income to supply their gaming habits. That's very difficult to actually obtain. $500 is not just a little pocket change, that's a big chunk of cash. Now, I do want to say my personal perspective. You know, I'm somebody who is fully grown, moved out, has a job, can afford this kind of thing. As a single man, let's go, baby. I can buy consoles and not have to take somebody out to dinner or buy legitimately good groceries. I can just pour all of my money into video games. I would be willing to pay on launch. I would feel comfortable at $500. That's kind of what I'm expecting for the next generation. If it was $600, I would probably still go buy at least one of the new consoles, but I would feel like it was a bit much. $400, very comfortable with. I'd buy one of them right here, right now. Sure. $400's fine. But I am predicting a price point of $500 because I feel like that's what's generally acceptable, and I think a lot of people are in the same boat that I am, especially those that are in my shoes where you do have expendable income that you can use to buy these consoles. But again, even $500, that's very expensive, and some people are still struggling to even find money to buy a PlayStation 4 if they ever even got one. But it seems like we are getting closer and closer to some kind of definitive figure of how much the PlayStation 5 is going to cost, but a lot of factors are going into how much this is actually going to be, and on top of that, when we are actually going to see it come out. That's going to be interesting to discuss as well. However, moving on, Remedy has 3 games in development, including its own live service game. Alan Wake 2, Alan Wake 2, Alan Wake 2, let's get it going, baby. Remedy has announced its latest financial report, and it has 3 games currently in development, including its own take on Destiny/Division style live service games. Last year's rather excellent Control has been doing well for Remedy, as CEO Tero Virtala points to it, and Alan Wake as being the 2 main contributors to its revenue last year. Weirdly, no mention of Quantum Break, which came between the two. Because of that, 3 more games are currently in development. The first has already been announced. It's the single-player component to Smilegate's FPS Crossfire X, which is headed to Xbox One later this year. Despite never making waves in the West, thanks to its immense popularity in China and other East Asian territories, the original Crossfire is the single most-played game in the world, with over 660 million registered accounts. Crossfire X is intended to be a big push for the series into the West, so having a studio like Remedy working on it makes complete sense. We know much less about the other 2 games. The first is an unnamed, undetailed game using Remedy's own brands, which means it could be anything from a new Alan Wake to a whole new series. It is unlikely that this is going to be another of these kind of single-player action-adventure games we have come to expect from Remedy. The second is Vanguard, which is Remedy's own attempt at the games-as-a-service genre. According to Virtala, Vanguard is aiming to combine long-term service-based multiplayer games with some of Remedy's unique game features. It's difficult to imagine what Remedy could mean by its own unique game features, seeing as each of its recent games has been radically different to the last in both tone and mechanic. Working things like that out for Vanguard is about where the studio is at the moment, as Virtala says both it and the other game are still preparing for pre-production. These 3 projects do not mean work on Control has wrapped up, though. Virtala states that sales for the game have settled on a good level and that the 2 paid expansions previously announced in September are still in development. At least one of these expansions is due for release by the middle of this year, and it may well include a crossover with Alan Wake, which is good because the author says they will not die happy until they get a follow-up to Alan Wake. Personally, never really cared that much for Alan Wake, but it's interesting to hear that Remedy has 3 big games in development. Of course, we already know about a couple of these, but I'm very, very curious about the future of this company, specifically in regards to Crossfire, because if this game is as big as they claim it to be, which I believe that this is a worldwide hit, we could be seeing a legitimate competitor with Battlefield, with Call of Duty. That's something that would be very interesting to see take hold in the West, but as we know, not every game that is popular in other areas of the world and in other regions is going to be popular across the pond. Now, with that being said, this games-as-a-service approach, I'm excited because I trust Remedy. I think they have a lot of really big creative talent behind the scenes working on some amazing pieces, and with that creativity combined with the technology we have today, a game as a service could be a fantastic approach for this company, and I'm always down to try something new. But really impressed with what Remedy is doing right now. I just started playing Control last weekend, and I'm going to try and continue to grind through it this weekend. Personally, I'm kind of feeling like I'm vegging out. I'm going to be playing something very relaxed, laid back. I'm just going to be a vegetable couch potato where I just relax so much my eyes go different ways. That's the goal for Saturday. But excited to see what the future of Remedy does look like. However, sources say YouTube's deal with Activision Blizzard was valued at $160 million. YouTube's media rights deal with Activision Blizzard Esports is valued at around $160 million USD over 3 years, according to people briefed on the terms of the pact, part of the broader new strategic partnership between Google and the video game company. Google and Activision Blizzard announced the new partnership late last month, just before the start of the Call of Duty League season. Sources said the deal comes in around $160 million total for all of the esports properties involved: Call of Duty, Overwatch, and Hearthstone. The previous deal that Activision Blizzard had for just the Overwatch League was reportedly valued at $90 million over 2 years. Activision Blizzard declined to comment. The exact breakdown of how much each property contributes to the total payout from Google is not known, but sources said that the majority is towards OWL, with a lesser but still notable amount going towards CDL, while Hearthstone, which is not a Tier 1 esport, was described as essentially a free throw-in for YouTube. Sources said that the deal includes significant incentive clauses for ad sales and viewership targets, so the money coming to the league and teams could go up markedly. These incentive clauses, described by sources as achievable, are partially why teams and other executives around the league have been happy with the new YouTube deal, even though the base amount going to OWL is not an increase from the Twitch deal. Now, of course, they talk more about the other aspects of this entire situation, which you can read more about on esportsobserver.com. But $160 million, that's the figure I want to talk about, because that is a chunk of change. You know, that's a lot of cash. And so I think that goes to show how valuable, number one, esports is as an entity, but number two, how valuable viewers can be, because although these are esports that are just being tossed around between Twitch and Caffeine and Mixer and YouTube and the highest bidder kind of wins, it does go to show that although some of these events might get less viewership than others, people are still looking at who is watching these events and how they can tap into that audience to sell a product, to market an event, to market whatever it might be. They're wanting to get in on that kind of action. And so, with that being said, we now know just about how much YouTube paid to have Activision Blizzard on their side of the deal. And of course, that would make me happy as well. But with that being taken into consideration, Call of Duty might be doing well on the esports side of things, but it looks like the Call of Duty movie is no longer a priority for Activision. According to Stefano Salima, who was said to be the director of the Call of Duty movie, Activision no longer sees the movie as a priority for their business in the current moment. Activision Blizzard announced in November 2015 that they were creating the Activision Blizzard Studios to build and create original films and TV shows around own IP projects. The only project to see the light of day from the studios was Skylanders' Netflix TV show, which has now ended after 3 seasons, and there is no sign of it coming back. In a podcast, Salima said the movie is no longer a priority for Activision Blizzard, and he says it's currently in limbo right now and that it's on hold. He says the writer of the Joker movie, Scott Silver, wrote a script for the movie. Well, the Call of Duty film has remained a bit like this. We wrote the script with Scott Silver, which is what Joker wrote, and let's say that the idea of expanding the universe, the world of Call of Duty, is cinematographic? I don't know, man. It is no longer at the moment an industrial part of the group of Activision. So trivially, it has stood still, something that happens quite frequently there in America. He remained in the limbo of the now let's see. That was a direct quote. I'm sure it's much more understandable within the context of the podcast, but the news comes from Italy's site Bad Taste in an interview with director Salima. And so it looks like the Call of Duty movie is on hold. My question, queuing the audience or querying the audience, whatever the correct term is, did anybody want this? Personally, no. I'm not even excited for the Uncharted movie. I'm not excited for the Tomb Raider movie. I'm morbidly curious about Sonic, which is somehow doing fairly well. But all of that to the side, I just don't feel like right now we need a Call of Duty movie. And 2015 as a year in gaming is very vastly different from 2020 as a year in gaming. Because Call of Duty has seen its decline and its rebound in a big way. Shooters are in a different spot. Single-player narratives are in a different spot. And on top of that, the film industry as a whole has continued to kind of shift and grow and evolve into something that's almost completely different. And so I don't know that a Call of Duty movie necessarily makes sense in today's day and age. But that's just my 2 cents. But moving on to the next topic of the day, the IRS will not ask you to report Fortnite V-Bucks on tax returns. The agency's overall approach to in-game currency is not clear. Do not worry, you won't have to factor in-game currency into your taxes, at least not yet. The IRS has removed a guideline cached here, they have a link to it, from October that treated Fortnite's V-Bucks, Roblox's Robux, and other in-game currencies with real monetary value as convertible currency that could be subject to federal taxes. In a follow-up, IRS Chief Counsel Michael Desmond confirmed to CNN Business that including in-game money was an error. The updated section now focuses on cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, so you can likely rest easy if you received a V-Bucks gift card last year. Can you even get V-Bucks gift cards? Is that a thing? I have no idea. I'm 22. I don't need to know that. The tax forms won't clarify matters, though. Schedule 1 in Form 1040 asks taxpayers if they have any financial interest in any virtual currency without a definition or an indication of what to do next. While many will check with the IRS for a clarification or simply assume the tax bureau is referring to crypto, this could lead to confusion for gamers who are not sure if their in-game cash needs to be declared. The ambiguity has prompted calls for the IRS to explicitly outline its approach to in-game currency, and it might need to take action relatively soon, given the sheer volume of transactions in games. Fortnite alone racked in an estimated $1.8 billion in worldwide revenue. There we go, in 2019 from people buying season passes and cosmetic gear. While only a fraction of the in-game currency use is likely to be of any concern to the US government, the numbers might grow too large for officials to ignore. Really hot take on this one. If you read the sentence, do you have any interest in virtual currency? No, you don't if you are thinking about your in-game COD points or your Fortnite V-Bucks or your Roblox, whatever they're called. No, that's not what they're talking about, and you know that. Why would you even think that? They're talking about Bitcoin, they're talking about Dogecoin, they're talking about Aretha, all this stuff. They're talking about that, you know. You don't need to worry about your in-game V-Bucks. That's something that's within the game. That's something you paid for. It exchanged hands. You bought a product. That's not an actual currency. Like, you can't trade. No. Regardless, I wanted to talk about this just in case somebody out there was a bit curious. Maybe you're filing taxes for the first time. Booga, you know, if you're out there with your millions of dollars in Fortnite winnings and you have tons and tons of V-Bucks, you don't have to worry about filing taxes on the V-Bucks themselves, but you have plenty to file on those winnings. However, Untitled Goose Game comes out on top of the DICE Awards. House's game with the Horrible Goose won top honors at the DICE Summit in Las Vegas Thursday night, with games like Control, Death Stranding, and others earning recognition. The full list of winners is down below. The Game of the Year went to Untitled Goose Game. Outstanding Achievement in Game Direction went to Control. Outstanding Achievement in Game Design went to Baba Is You. Portable Game of the Year went to Sayonara Wild Hearts. Outstanding Achievement for Independent Games and goes to Untitled Goose Game. Immersive Reality Game of the Year is Pistol Whip. Immersive Reality Technical Achievement is Blood and Truth. Outstanding Achievement in Online Gameplay is Apex Legends. Strategy/Sim Game of the Year is Fire Emblem Three Houses. Sports Game is FIFA 20. Role-Playing Game is The Outer Worlds. Racing Game is Mario Kart Tour. Fighting Game is Mortal Kombat 11. Family Game is Super Mario Maker 2. Adventure Game of the Year is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Action Game is Control. Outstanding Technical Achievement goes to Death Stranding. Outstanding Achievement in Story goes to Disco Elysium. Outstanding Achievement in Audio Design goes to Death Stranding. Original Music Composition is Control. Outstanding Achievement in Character goes to Untitled Goose Game. Art Direction, Control. And Animation goes to Luigi's Mansion 3. I don't know about that last one. Outstanding Achievement in Animation is Luigi's Mansion 3. But of course, out of all of these awards, needless to say, Game of the Year went to Untitled Goose Game. What? Now, I will admit that I've been playing the game a bit on the Xbox One, and I understand the draw of it because it drops you into this quirky little cartoonish world, and you have to kind of figure out how things work. That's really the goal of the game, is that you have really no guide as to what to actually do. You just have to figure out how to, as a goose, do the things that are on your list. And that definitely does present a bit of a challenge, and also I would say that the design surrounding the game to make that possible is something that's really, really unique, and it's very well done. So with that being said, I understand why Untitled Goose Game is Game of the Year, but my question is, did it really deserve that? You know, there's so many good games out there. Control, Death Stranding, all of these games. I mean, so many instances of games that could potentially be other games of the year, but no, Untitled Goose Game comes out as numero uno at the DICE Awards. Now, normally, this is where I'd end today's show, but there are two pieces of news that are not gaming related that I feel compelled to talk about. The first of which is the new Batman teaser, okay? Now, these are just a couple of screenshots. There is a roughly 1 minute long teaser of what to expect from the new Robert Pattinson Batman movie. And, oh my gosh, I'm in love with the way that this looks. Now, of course, a younger Batman is going to be present. He is going to be the subject of the film itself. But overwhelmingly, I cannot wait to see what happens here. Now, rumor has it, from what I have seen around discussions in the industry, the bat symbol is actually brought together from pieces of the gun that killed his parents. Of course, being the Waynes. I love this concept. I love the look. I love Robert Pattinson's look in this. I love the cowl. Cannot wait to see this whenever it comes out in 2021. Of course, this is part of the Joker cinematic universe, which has been launched by DC. I'm very excited about this. I'm not normally really into superhero stuff, but this Batman movie, this one's getting me. I'm getting strong Joker vibes. I hope that it takes that kind of realistic approach. The realism is what I like. That's one thing that always throws me off with the Avengers, which of course is a different kind of approach, but there is comedy mixed in with just this sense of over-the-top action, which of course is fine. You know, that's just that kind of superhero movie. But I like the nitty-gritty. I like the serious kind of approach. And so if you want to learn more, by all means, you can check out the entire video, which shows off, again, about a minute, probably less, of the Batman suit with Robert Pattinson. But man, I am there for it. Now, the most important topic of the day, we've all been lied to. Papa John admits he did not eat 40 pizzas in 30 days, tarnishing an otherwise stellar reputation. It's been almost 3 months since a very sweaty, very normal Papa John Schnatter, I believe that's how you say his last name, I have no idea, it's Papa John, Big Papa, promised a, quote, day of reckoning to the corporate conspirators who ousted him on his grease-slathered pizza throne. And so far, we are still sans reckoning for those imposters of the crown. Of course, this might have been in part due to Schnatter's failure to mention his firing only came after an audio clip leaked of him using the N-word during a company conference call on racial sensitivity, but let's not get mired down in the details, okay? The point we're making here is that Papa John has not made good on his promises of vengeance, and we are starting to doubt his character a little bit. But hey, at least we can't take away his impressive feat of eating 40 pizzas in 30 days from his former franchise during a rigorous self-imposed fact-finding mission to prove it just doesn't taste as good without him at the helm, right? Well, prepare for disappointment. Papa John recently took a moment to clarify that he meant 40 pizza slices, which is still insane, but you know, not as satisfying bad shit as one of the literal weight and pepperoni kind of approaches we thought he meant. When I said I had a pizza, this means I'm inspecting. I'm not eating every pizza. I may be eating parts of the pizzas, he said during an interview on the H3 podcast. Papa John went on to assure us all he still eats around 8 or 9 slices a week, as opposed to 12 to 15 per week while gainfully employed at his namesake company. This individual is eating 12 to 15 pieces of pizza per week while employed at Papa John's, but now that he's not, he's cut it back to 8 or 9? Are you kidding me? As the New York Post notes, this means at most he was only eating 1.5 pizzas per week or 6 a month, which is far from 40. Far from 40 indeed. Meanwhile, we're taking bets as to which cabinet position Schnatter will get appointed to in Trump's second term. Our money is on Secretary Housing and Urban Development. Of course, they say at the AV Club. I've been lied to. We have been bamboozled. I do not appreciate this, Mr. Papa John. Do not do this to me. If you're saying you're eating 40 pizzas in 30 days, I'm going to need you to legitimately come through on that promise. But regardless, this is one of the strangest men. If you have not seen this episode of the H3 podcast, you need to go watch it. It is content that is impeccably perfect in every kind of way, shape, or form. But regardless, what a strange man, horrible person. Relatively good pizza, though. I'll give him that. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed this one, drop me a like down below. And of course, if you are brand new to the show, let me know what you think and leave a comment down below letting me know you are brand new here if you are watching on YouTube. Of course, if you're on a podcast service, hit that subscribe button. The show happens Monday through Friday, so stay subscribed and stay up to date. But until next time, you guys have a good one and peace.